Anniversary of 9/11. You know that undoubtedly by now. 22 years ago was 9/11. I say you know that undoubtedly by now because this is the day where we as a nation, we kind of look around and we take stock of where we were, where we are. What were we thinking then? What do we think about it all now? Have our perspectives changed? It's a different day for a lot of different people, and people assess this day in different ways. The veterans might look at it different than other people. Cops, firefighters may be different than other people. People have gotten disillusioned extremely with this government. That's like most of us, probably look at it differently than those who have not. With days like today, I never am quite sure how I want to approach it. I generally fall on this side of it, though. Honoring the fallen. Honoring the fallen. I think it's important to take time to do that. I think it's important to honor people's memories. I don't like it that we forget about our heroes all the time. Or not just veterans, our heroes in society. They come and they go. We remember the rapper's name for decades, but we forget about the heroes. Does that make sense? And when it comes to that day, the individual stories, we've all seen the footage of the towers and the crashes and the falling and everything else, but the individual stories. Maybe the biggest gut punch about today is whenever I go back and I listen to Brian Sweeney's voicemail, he left his wife. This was the last time she ever heard from him.
Jules, this is Brian. Lives on an airplane that's been hijacked. If things don't go well, I'm looking good. I just want you to know I absolutely love you. I want you to do good. Go have a good time. Same to my parents and everybody. And I just totally love you. And I'll see you later. Bye, babe.
I'll see you when you get there. Something to think about, right? I think about that falling man image. We've all seen it forever. You've seen it for 22 years. You've seen it. That is a living human being. Well, for another split second anyway. It's a living human being who went to work normally that day, and then at some point in his day was forced to stand out the open end of a skyscraper that had a big hole in it and choose between burning to death or diving to the pavement below. And obviously he made the choice that, choice I would probably make. I think about all the others, the people who were trapped in there, most of them about to die, their voicemails.
Sean, it's me. I just wanted to let you know I love you, and I'm stuck in this building in New York. There's lots of smoke, and I just wanted you to know that I love you always.
At number 2 World Trade Center, right? Lady was shooting in the office. We're not ready to die, but it's getting bad.
It's tough, isn't it? All we can do is honor their memory. And we can endeavor to never, ever, ever take this day and be like this woman here.
Not only a place on our calendars, but a place in our collective memory. December 7th, 1941. September 11th, 2001. And January 6th, 2021.
January 6th. Probably a decent time to bring up this little fact that they compare 9/11 to January 6th. Well, pause for a moment and think about all the things they did in response to 9/11. Did they feel that same kind of response is necessary for January 6th? Interesting question, isn't it? Anyway, joining me now to tell his 9/11 story, we all have one, Cully Stimson. He is the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Detainee Affairs under President George W. Bush. Cully, 9/11, everyone who was alive and able to produce memories knows where they were and what the deal was. Where were you?
I was the lieutenant commander in the Navy Reserves, but on that day I was working for corporate America, and I was a vice president for Marsh McLennan. I ran their private equity M&A shop out of DC, and I was taking some clients on a golf course here in the DC area. And of course, we had an office on the 93rd through 100th floor in the World Trade Center, and the first plane that hit the first tower hit Marsh and killed 385 of my colleagues.
God, mercy. Okay, after the attacks, I can only assume you got a phone call, didn't you?
I did. Like a lot of people, I was put on standby by my CO, and I was in the first wave of Navy JAGs recalled back to active duty. And one of the things I really remember, Jesse, is my wife was on a business trip. She was in California, I was here in DC. We knew that the likelihood of getting recalled was very high. And I got called at 7 in the morning by my CO, and she said, you got 72 hours to get your sea bag and go. And I said, aye, aye. And I called my wife, so it was 4 in the morning, her time in San Diego. And I said, I got the call. And my wife said, do your duty. That's all she said. And I'm sure that a lot of spouses said the same exact thing, because at that time, as you remember, because you served honorably in the Marine Corps, there was a sense of duty and honor, and you did your job. And a lot of people did.
Yeah, a lot of people did. What a woman you got there. I love that story. Cully, maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. We don't feel like that country today. And I know countries change and times change. I get all that. But, we all ask ourselves that question, because I remember a time of unity, at least for a brief time after it was over. We all ask ourselves that question, will we unify again? And I don't know if that would happen again. Man, I hope I'm wrong about that.
Well, I hope you're wrong too. But most people don't even realize, Jesse, that we're still in a state of armed conflict. We're at war, literally. Legally speaking, we're at war. I remember Secretary Rumsfeld, who I had the privilege of working for as Deputy Assistant Defense Secretary, used to say to his political appointees, and there was only a handful of us, he would come into the building at 6:30 in the morning, he would leave at 6:30 at night and head back across the Potomac to his house in DC, and he would say, we're the only building at war. He said, all the lights are on at the Pentagon, I crossed the river, and all the lights are off in the other federal government buildings. And this was in 2006. So here we are in 2023, and I bet if you did a man on the street walk around and asked 100 people, are we at war? Most of them would look at you like you're nuts, but we still are.
Cully, looking back now, how do we assess the global war on terror? I know a lot of people, especially veterans who served, have a lot of different ways they look at it, and most of the veterans I talk to today, sadly, do not feel wonderful about the whole thing. You served. How do you feel about it?
Well, like you, Jesse, I served in the Department of the Navy. I did my 30 years, retired as a captain a year ago or so. And, no one wants war. This war came to our shores just like it did at Pearl Harbor. There is evil in the world. It's a black and white thing. I mean, there is evil. I know some people are naive and don't think there is evil. But when you talk to these terrorists, and I've been in the interrogation booth in the room, I helped bring the 14 high-value guys out of the shadows to Guantanamo Bay in September 2006. They have a saying, Jesse, you guys have watches, we have calendars. They take the long view, just like the Chinese do now. There is evil in the world. And so the sacrifices that happened not only on 9/11, this solemn day, but then afterwards in the Battle of Fallujah, in Afghanistan, across many provinces, in Iraq, where you served with honor with the Marine Corps, that's part of the price of freedom. Doesn't make it any easier. So I hope young women and men today who are physically fit and have courage and patriotism in their DNA step up. And I know they do, because I was at the Naval Academy yesterday. It was alumni weekend, and I saw a lot of young men and women in uniform proudly walking around that base. And so I'm a glass is half full guy, and I'm bullish about the future. I hate politics. Politicians ruin it for the rest of us. but we still are a great country, and it's worth fighting for.
Cully, Semper Fi, brother. Have a good one today.
Semper Fi.
I have great news. If you enjoyed that, I have a YouTube channel you can subscribe to. Whatever I do, it'll be right there on YouTube. So go subscribe today.